Hi everybody. We're beginning week 3 and our topic this week is defining crime. Now your textbook does a very good job of defining what a crime is and of explaining to you that there are various categories of crime. And I have also done that very thing in a pretty long, and I apologize for that, written announcement. So I'm not going to make this video very long. I've already, in my written announcement, I'm already asking for a lot of your time this week. I want to talk with you a little bit, though, about not what a crime is, because I think you know that already, at least instinctively you know it. And your book explains it to you, and my written announcement explains it to you as well. But this week we're also going to be delving into the question of what is illegal versus what is unethical. Your discussion board topic especially deals with that. It is asking you to look at an example, a hypothetical, in which a nurse refuses to give CPR to a dying patient. Now you'll read the details in the discussion board description, but we're going to be discussing the ethics of that. Is what she did or refused to do legal or illegal? And the real question is what she refused to do ethical or unethical? Those two things are not always the same. We'll explore that as the week goes on. We're also talking about the nitty-gritty of criminal law and what a crime is. How are crimes categorized? How are they defined? Who gets to define them? Well, let me spoil that surprise right now. Crimes are defined by the legislative bodies that have the power to pass criminal laws. As a practical matter, that's who gets to define what a crime is. If you live in, for instance, Oklahoma, the Oklahoma State Legislature gets to define what behaviors are considered to be criminal in Oklahoma. If you live in the United States of America, which we all do, the United States Congress gets to define what the federal government considers to be criminal behavior. And it also gets to determine, as all legislatures do, what punishment is available for certain kinds or levels of crimes. One of the things that you did in week 2 was pick out a law, usually in your own state, but not necessarily, and explore its history, its historical background, and so forth. One of the reasons for that assignment that you might not have really liked very much is to show you that there are some behaviors that have been considered criminal across time and across societies. If you went back to ancient Rome or ancient Greece, for example, or if you went back to heaven knows what ancient society, you would probably find that one person killing another person is considered to be a crime. Murder, in other words, has historically been considered a crime in every society and across time. We always have considered it a crime. We consider it a crime now. We probably always will consider it a crime. We, meaning human beings. Some crimes, however, are situational or temporal. For example, for a period of time between 1919 and I think 1933, if I remember correctly, manufacturing and selling alcohol in this country was considered to be a federal crime. We call that period Prohibition, because the manufacture and sale of alcohol was prohibited. That tells you that what we define, what a society defines as a crime, can change over time. We no longer consider manufacturing and selling alcohol to be criminal behavior. It's regulated behavior. It's regulated by the federal government. It's usually regulated by state governments as well. But it's legal. It's perfectly legal. We're not even going to get into the ethics of that because we don't care. But the point is that there are some crimes that have always been, some behaviors that have always been criminal probably always will be criminal. Those are called malum in se. That is to say, bad in and of themselves. There are so many Latin terms in the law. It is just tons of fun every day. Crimes, however, that are wrong only because at the moment there's a law that prohibits them, or behaviors, I should say, that are wrong only because at the moment there's a law that prohibits them, are called malum prohibitum. That is to say, bad only because they are now prohibited, hence the term prohibition. We see this all the time. Some of you, I doubt, maybe not any of you really, you're probably all too young for this, but there was a period of time in the 1970s, because of the oil crisis and gasoline prices and so forth, where the federal government imposed a nationwide 55-mile-per-hour speed limit. No state was allowed to have a speed limit on any roads greater than 55 miles per hour. That was driving a car faster than 55 miles per hour was a behavior that was at the time malum prohibitum, a bad thing because there was a law against it, not for any other reason. Now we drive faster than 55 all the time because that federal law was repealed, and states then impose their own local and regional speed limits depending on the nature and surface of the road. So you see, things change over time when we're talking about some kinds of crimes, but some behaviors are bad no matter when, no matter where, no matter what. Most of the time, but not all of the time. The crimes that we label as malum in se are felonies. Felony is a more serious crime that carries a more serious punishment than a misdemeanor. A misdemeanor is a less serious crime that carries a punishment of some kind, but the level of punishment is much less. If you read my, I'm not going to go into this in detail in this video because it's already too long. Look at my written announcement and, of course, at your textbook to see the difference between those. Your tasks, I'm going to get more practical here and not just go on and on and on about things I've already written about, and I'm boring you to tears anyway, I'm pretty sure. The tasks this week have to do with the discussion board topic that I talked about already, but your assignment, in lieu of a paper, is to create a graphic representation of the role of local, state, and federal governments in defining crime. How do they relate to each other? How does a behavior that's labeled prohibited at the local level relate to state crimes or federal crimes? What is the relationship among these behaviors? Are there certain behaviors, for instance, that are considered prohibited, and by that I just mean criminal, punishable, everywhere and at every level? Again, the stock example of that is always going to be killing somebody. Now, we don't have local laws that prohibit homicide because those are felonies that are prohibited by state laws and by federal laws. But there are certain kinds of behaviors that are considered to be prohibited at various levels in this country, at the local level, at the state level, at the federal level. And your assignment is asking you to create some kind of visual using PowerPoint or using maybe the table function of Word. You all are probably much better versed in how to create graphics than I am, using whatever mechanism is that you're comfortable with to create some kind of visual representation of the authority to define what a crime is. And just remember that in every state there are at least two levels of authority to define crime. One is the state level, of course, and then below that there will be at least one other level, probably counties or parishes, if you're in Louisiana, or towns or townships or cities. All of those are smaller political entities that have the authority to label some behaviors as criminal. That is to say, to define crime. And of course, the federal government has the authority to decide what will be considered to be criminal behavior on a federal level. Sometimes there's overlap between state crimes and federal crimes. Very seldom, I think, between local and federal. I can't think of an example of that. But there are a lot of behaviors that violate both state and federal laws. This week, we won't get into the hierarchy of who gets to punish what. That's a topic for another day. Now, I'm already at the 11-minute mark almost, so I'm going to say goodbye. Please email me, contact me if you have any questions about the assignments this week, about your obligations, or about the materials. And if I haven't been particularly clear in this video, and I don't think I have been very clear, or in my written announcement, which, as I've already warned you, is pretty long. If you don't read it all in one go, at least go back to it on and off all week, because it's got a lot of kind of core basic information that might be slightly more succinct than your textbook. Thank you for your attention, as always, and I hope you have a great week. Bye.